This is the key, and I've been thinking about this a lot with the church too. Every time we train someone, we say, you don't know the people's stories that are walking in our door. You don't know if their dog died yesterday. You don't know if they're going through a divorce. You don't know if they just lost their job. Everybody has grief. I know it seems kind of sad, but when you can look at every single person that walks in the door as a potential friend, someone who may be suffering and you don't know it, and someone who may just need a place to feel welcome. That is what the big picture is. For us, the why behind the what drives it.
Hello and welcome to More Than Sunday, a weekly podcast where we take a deeper dive into the stories, themes, and questions of our faith. My name is Julie Richter, and I'm the lead pastor to Access, our modern worship community here at First United Methodist Church, Richardson. And with me every week is our worship director, Eric Chakowski. Happy almost Thanksgiving, Eric.
Happy almost Thanksgiving to you.
So we're recording this podcast a little bit earlier than the Wednesday before Thanksgiving because we knew the holiday was coming up. But Eric, what are your Thanksgiving plans?
So I'm just eating turkey for 2 weeks straight.
Like it's your job.
Well, yeah. So we had a staff Thanksgiving gathering the week before Thanksgiving, and I ate all of the turkey and cranberry and pecan pie.
You really do love pecan pie.
So then the next day I had half of the leftover pecan pie. I've eaten so much pecan pie. And then the Sunday before Thanksgiving, which would have been about 3 days ago from when this podcast airs, but we're having my family get together for a Thanksgiving meal. And then my wife Val's family is coming in from Houston and from St. Louis, and we're doing another Thanksgiving proper on the day of. So it's just all of the Thanksgiving food.
All of the food
with
and
all
the
of the families. Yeah, it's going to be great.
That's awesome.
What about you?
So I am getting to do something that I have never done before.
Okay.
So my brother lives in Boston now. He is in his first year of seminary at Boston U, and I have never been to Boston or New York.
Oh.
Yeah.
I haven't done New York, so.
Yeah, and so I am so excited. So we're going to do the first few days in New York and see all of the shows and, freeze completely to death, but, And then on Wednesday, when this is coming out, when our podcast is coming out, I will be on my way to Boston to spend Thanksgiving in Boston with my family.
Awesome.
So we found a really cute house and are going to have the traditional Thanksgiving meal. We always have this thing called Greenberg turkey.
Okay.
It is a smoked turkey that was on Oprah's favorites list at one point.
Smoked turkey is the best kind of turkey.
And it is the best turkey. I didn't know turkey actually tasted different than Greenberg for a long time because I've had it since I was a kid. So we order a Greenberg turkey and it's being shipped to my brother's apartment in Boston. And so, we're going to have food and family and football. It's going to be so much fun.
Awesome. So much to be thankful for in this time of year specifically, but year-round as well. And great that we can all share some time to really observe that and sort of put some intentional thought into that. So we're also thankful and really excited to continue our conversation around inviting and welcoming. And we've got a fabulous guest today. Patti Otte is with us, and we're very excited to have a conversation with Patti. We are here with Patti Otte. Patti is one of the founders of Sweet Firefly Gourmet Ice Cream, which is a fabulous ice cream place here in the city of Richardson. If you don't live in Richardson or near Richardson, you're missing out because it's the best.
It's worth the trip.
It's so worth it. Patti, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So would you tell us just a little bit about you and maybe where the desire came from to start a business or be a part of a business startup?
Well, it's a funny story. I actually have a master's degree in education. I never intended to be a businesswoman at all. And Angie, my business partner, actually worked at Southwest Airlines for about 8 years before she stayed home with her kids. And unfortunately, in 2009, my husband and I lost our daughter, Kate, and that set me on a different journey. I had been staying home with my kids, and about a year after she passed away, Angie approached me and said, I know you don't really know what you want to do. I'd really like to open an ice cream shop, and I think we would be perfect business partners. I'm more outgoing. She's more organized. We didn't know each other well, but we knew each other well enough to trust one another. And it took us about 4 months of discussing, were we crazy? Neither one of us had ever scooped ice cream. Neither one of us had ever had a business class. We just had this really strong desire to create a warm and welcoming place. And for me, once you've lost a child, there's nothing frightening anymore. There's just not. And so the idea of opening a business and having it potentially fail or not be loved the way we want it to be did not scare me. So 4 months in, we said yes, and it took us about 3 months to negotiate a lease and 5 months to build out. And October 1st, 2011, Sweet Firefly was born.
Well, I've just listened, in fact, on my way into work this morning to the How I Built This podcast of Ben & Jerry's. And you are in good company for starting an ice cream brand and business for somebody who knew nothing about ice cream, because neither did they. And it was really interesting to hear that story. Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
That's right. So let me really quickly say that their bourbon vanilla ice cream is...
We can't get too far into this without actually talking about the ice cream.
I literally can't. So it doesn't have alcohol in it. The bourbon vanilla ice cream is hands down my favorite flavor of ice cream that I've ever had in my life.
It's our number 2 bestseller, so you have good taste.
And thank you. And the number 1 is...
Sea salt caramel.
Yes.
That is my favorite.
Julie's favorite, our senior pastor Clayton's favorite, and many, many others.
Yes.
It is wonderful ice cream. So, sorry to tangent in that way, but would you tell us how the next several years went? How did the start go? How did the launch go? And,
Sure.
And what you love about the shop since then?
When we first opened Sweet Firefly, we really saw ourselves as shopkeepers and spreaders of joy, but we did not want to make our own ice cream at all. And so we found a gourmet creamery, but 5 months into the journey, that creamery closed. And so we opened a second business, which was a creamery. So while we're learning to scoop ice cream and learning that we needed a bookkeeper from day one, even though we didn't have one, and hiring staff, and boy, we cobbled together friends, neighbors. Our architect's son was one of our first employees. Actually, the Rachels go here to First Methodist. And we just started trying to figure it out as we went. I had worked at Disney World in college for a semester. I did their college program, and there were 2 guiding principles at Disney, and one was show readiness, and the other one was assertive friendliness. And the show readiness just meant we did not want anyone to be sticky when they touched anything. We wanted them to walk in and feel how clean and welcoming it was. But the assertive friendliness piece was really more important, and I think it's why we're here today, why I'm talking to you, and that is that at Disney, from the moment that you walk into the park, you may not understand why you feel so happy when you're there, but they go into the littlest details to make sure that you do feel that way. There is no trash on the ground. Your makeup, your jewelry, everything when you work there is regulated, and you're taught what it means to be assertively friendly. And an example of that at Sweet Firefly would be if you walk into our shop and someone says, "Hi," that's being friendly. But if somebody says, "Hey, Julie, it's so good to see you here again," or if Rachel remembers, "Would you like your Sweet Daddy coffee toffee on a waffle cone again today, Matt?" That is assertive friendliness. And last week, you guys mentioned Cheers, the bar. And I like to think that Sweet Firefly is an alcohol-free version of Cheers, where it's important to us to create a sense of community. That was one of our goals. We had a little bit of a business plan, but really what we had was a vision. And the vision was a mission, but it wasn't a mission like some people think of mission. Ours is an ecumenical mission where we want everyone to feel warm and welcomed when they come. And so we just started practicing that, and we trained our employees over, and they're not even employees. We trained our team members over and over, day by day, how to step out of their comfort zone and really look at each person that walked through the door as a potential friend. You're not selling joy, but you're providing it. You're selling great ice cream, which brings joy, but it's also in the way that you treat people that walk in the door that makes the difference.
I love, love, love that idea. It's so important to not think of it just solely as selling. like that someone is buying something from you and you are giving it to them. There is more than that. So I want to dive into that training just for a minute a little bit more, because I think that is so helpful in our church context. You mentioned just a second ago that you call your staff a team.
Yes.
They're not employees, they are team members. Right. So what are some other small details like that y'all have really focused on to make Sweet Firefly feel as welcoming as it does?
And, I said team, we also say crew a lot. Mm-hmm. And honestly, Julie, when Angie and I were talking earlier today about what makes Sweet Firefly, I realized it starts at the interview. When we interview someone, we say there are only 2 ways to get fired at Sweet Firefly immediately. One is to put your hand inside the shaved ice machine because there's a really sharp blade and you can get hurt.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, right? And the other is to treat anyone differently based on race, color, creed, gender preference, sexual orientation, whatever it is. I think it's a very Methodist way of treating people. What is it that Pastor Clayton says? We have a very large tent here, I think. Well, we have a really large tent at the shop. So we go in saying, this is a mission, but it's an ecumenical mission that it's based on love. And I know it sounds kind of cheesy to some people, but we don't think so. And so part of our interview process is determining whether or not someone gets what we're about. They don't have to be outgoing. As Angie says, no one's going to have as easy a time talking to people as Patti does, but we need introverts too, because, for instance, my son is an introvert. He is not going to come up and, talk to you about Sweet Firefly and how much he loves it. But if he sits down with you, eventually, he'll get there. And with our kids, this is the key. And I've been thinking about this a lot with the church, too. Every time we train someone, we say, you don't know the people's stories that are walking in our door. You don't know if their dog died yesterday. You don't know if they're going through a divorce. You don't know if they just lost their job. Everybody has grief. That's what I learned when Kate died. People would always think that I had the lock on grief because I had the worst grief of all, losing a child. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is, that's not true. Everybody's grief is their own, and it's just as important to them. And so, I really feel like that is the key. I know it seems kind of sad, but when you can look at every single person that walks in the door as a potential friend, someone who may be suffering and you don't know it, and someone who may just need a place to feel welcome. That is what the big picture is. For us, the why behind the what drives it. Now, I've been known to stand behind employees while they're waiting on someone and say, Disney, whisper in their ear. And the ones who are very quiet, talk to them about, this is not scary. We are not curing cancer. You don't have to do this perfectly. I'd like your scoop size to be consistent, but at the end of the day, that's not what people are going to remember. I mean, we're lucky we have a great ice cream product. I get it. I mean, we really were taught by the best of the best how to make ice cream, but the ice cream is just a vehicle for what we're really trying to accomplish. There have been a lot of typically businessmen, no offense, Eric, but businessmen and some women who don't really understand us. We're not profit-driven. I mean, yes, we would like to make a profit, but we are not growth-oriented. We are lifestyle-oriented. We are a lifestyle-oriented business. And what I mean by that is if we have to choose between working 7 days a week to hit a certain goal versus working 6 so that we can have an evening off to take our staff out to dinner or to have family time or whatever it is, we want to re-energize our staff that way. We want to take a break, take a breath. It's almost like a Sabbath. We aren't closed on Sunday because we are focused on family and community and having a place where generations of family members can get together. And often that happens after church and on Sunday. So we have our day of rest on Monday. But that's part of what we do. It's just really, it's more of a culture. And that's what Angie brings to the table. Angie, having worked at Southwest, understands how important it is to establish culture and to constantly remind people, this is who we are, this is what our mission is, and it's to welcome people and spread joy and light.
There is so many good things that you just said, but I just love the idea of spreading joy through ice cream. There are so many organizations, businesses that have a thing that maybe they sell or give or do, but isn't necessarily what their mission is, right? And so you are effectively spreading joy, as you said, through ice cream, and even on some level spreading the gospel through your ice cream shop.
Absolutely.
Which is so incredible. And I think it's such a great thing for all of us to remember that any of us, no matter what we do vocationally, have the opportunity to spread joy, spread the gospel through, again, the work that we do, the thing that we sell, the service that we provide, with an assertive friendliness, which I love that term so much.
That's such a great term.
Just going beyond polite. I was a part of a group that gave a workshop this week at an event called When Polite is the First Step. And it's effectively that. I mean, I might steal that term, assertive friendliness, if that's
Please
okay.
do. I stole it from Mickey Mouse, so it's fine.
Right. But it's so true, the difference between saying hi and, to your example, reminding folks like at Cheers where everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
You do have to find or create a space and a way for people who aren't naturally assertively friendly to demonstrate their love and care for someone. So, for instance, here at church, I really wish we had we call it in the Catholic Church, I used to be Catholic, the peace or whatever it is, passing the peace.
Yes.
And for me, that's very natural. I want to turn to the person next to me and have a reason to say hi. My dad, on the other hand, wants no part of that. I think our Access community does that really well. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you need a crutch for somebody who's not normally as outgoing to have a way to integrate. And if not in worship, you look for ways to take your different numbers on the Enneagram, for instance. For those of you who know the Enneagram, the 5s are not going to necessarily be happy working at Sweet Firefly unless we give them a lot of love and care. That's the other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit is that, yes, we have a culture of welcoming and warmth, but it starts with our team. We love those kids, and yes, we are hard on them. We have super high standards, but we also pour into them. We love watching them grow up. We love seeing them be successful in school. We have had kids who have gone away to college who are now coming back thinking they want to open their own Sweet Firefly. That, to me, is the greatest compliment, is knowing that we've impacted their life in such a way that they feel better for having been with us. We've employed probably about 75 people since we opened in 2011, and there are some that really stand out and who found a home away from home with us, and I think that's part of what you're experiencing too. I think that could happen here at the church as well. When people, feel that sense of community, they want to share it. The only danger in that is, and we really have to work at this with our team, is if you get too close and you forget your mission. It's the example that Pastor Clayton gave the other day when he closed the circle. And, we have all the answers. We are having all the fun. We're very quick to tell our team, if somebody walks in the front door and there are 4 of you behind the counter and you're all 4 talking to each other, they already don't feel as welcome as if one of you is cleaning tables, the other one has an eye on the front door. We deliberately do not oil the front door so that we can hear the door when it opens. Right?
That's so great.
Someone did oil it one time, and I'm like, where is everybody? But they were coming in, but I wasn't
You just weren't
hearing
hearing
it. So culture is really an important word to us, and I think y'all talked about that last week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you touched on it in terms of cultivating that with the team first. And I think the word I would use is not getting too comfortable. Because the same thing that you talked about, what if this happened in our shop, can happen and does happen in the church on Sunday morning. We come to see the people we already know, we already love, and we can close that circle so quickly, even unintentionally, and not recognize that there are new people walking in who you may actually want to bring into that circle and are not doing a very good job of it because you're not even aware that they're there. And that can't just be my job or Eric's job or your job or the person wearing the lanyard or the name tag. It has to be everyone's job. But that only happens if we are cultivating and creating a safe space where people really do feel the investment in them as a person.
So, Patti, you've talked a lot and shared so many great things about how y'all have intentionally made Sweet Firefly a welcoming place. How do you go about inviting folks to come try it out, promoting, marketing, those sorts of things?
We have $0 for advertising. And we've always been that way. And part of that was selfish. Since we'd never scooped ice cream before, we opened in October, hoping it would be slow and that we could learn
Figure
the
it
business.
out as you go.
Literally, we said we're going to grow organically, very naturally, one customer at a time, one conversation. Now, with the advent of social media, that's changing more than anything because our crew expects us to be on social media. But really, it comes down to being involved in the community. Anybody who walks in who needs something for an auction, we give them a gift card. The Boy Scouts can sell popcorn in front of the shop. Right now, we're having FUMCR's middle school Bible study in the back room. We look for ways to invest in our community, and that's one of the main ways that we get the word out. But in terms of actually having an advertising budget of any kind, we don't do that because we just want it to be word of mouth and natural.
The series that we had right before this one was called Being the Church That Richardson Needs. And what a beautiful byproduct it is when you invest in your community, that one of the fruits that comes from that is that people know who you are. Mm-hmm. And people might be interested in coming to see what you're about and maybe trying your ice cream.
It's interesting because sometimes when I sit in church, I feel really guilty that I'm not spending more time at the church volunteering. And then I remind myself, okay, if you're doing this job right, if you're doing this store in a love-centered, Christ-centered, mindful way, you are volunteering, even though you're making a little bit of money doing so. And that's, what I think is so important. It's something you touched on earlier, Eric, that you don't have to work at the church. You don't even have to be a member of our church to hopefully feel our love throughout the community. I love that.
Yeah. And you've created a space that is a home away from home, not just for your employees or your crew, but for those of us at the church. I imagine you probably think sometimes, well, even if I haven't been at church a whole lot recently, you maybe don't recognize that because you see all of us at your shop. And so for many of us in the community, Sweet Firefly has become another place outside of the church where we know we can gather. And so whether it's the middle school Bible study that is happening in the back room, anytime we have something going on, we know that we can call y'all, not just for the ice cream, though that is such a wonderful part of it, but because my small group on a Sunday afternoon wants to come and get ice cream together there. And having a gathering place that we know we can meet up at is just, it's so important.
It's kind of that third place, which is sort of the mantra that Starbucks built on, right? They know that you have home and you have work and they want a third place. And Sweet Firefly is a fantastic example of that third place that people can just be in community together.
Patti, you mentioned earlier something that I want to come back to that I think is so important in terms of being welcoming, that everybody has a story and that everyone is going through some sort of grief. And what I find makes us sometimes unwelcoming unintentionally is that we are people of comparison. And even in our grieving, I find that we do that my grief is worse than your grief. And so I just appreciated your humility to be able to say, yes, I went through a very terrible time of grief, but that doesn't mean other people haven't either. And how that plays into the way we build relationships, because sometimes we think that either people that are grieving are people that we just need to care for, like they're the broken and we have to fix them, rather than actually having a shared grieving and recognizing when we all walk in, we are all walking in with something. And that something is not worth getting to know to fix, but getting to know because we need that common humanity.
I want to focus on something, or I want to talk about something that is really important to me, and that is the ecumenical piece of this mission. When Kate died, there were a lot of people, well-intentioned people, who said, everything happens for a reason, God has a plan. I am sure there are people who think, and I really do believe this, that, well, because Kate died, it was not that she was supposed to die, but that Sweet Firefly is a natural byproduct of that. And I don't subscribe to that theory. I subscribe to the idea that we all have God-given gifts and talents, and I believe that God has a dream for every one of our lives. And I think his dream for Kate was probably that she spread joy and light, and she's still doing it. Even though she's not here, it's not how long our lives are lived that matters. It's how rich they are. And I don't feel like Christians have a lock on that. I don't think Methodists have a lock on that. I think it's funny that the big painting we have in the front of our place that says, the time to be happy is now. The place to be happy is here. The way to be happy is to make others so. We thought we just had struck upon something wonderful when we found that. Turns out Robert Ingersoll, the guy that said it, was an atheist. And I just find that there's some great irony there, that there are a lot of people that walk into our shop that don't know us, that assume this is a Christian mission. This is not. This is a love mission. You know, this is a time in our church's history where we're having to make some tough decisions about who we're going to welcome, who we're going to serve. And I love the fact that when people come into Sweet Firefly, they don't know why they feel so good. I like to think Kate has a little piece of it. I like to think Angie's mom, who died of Lou Gehrig's years ago, has a little piece of that. I like to feel like there's this thin veil that separates us between those we've lost and those who are still with us. But I really feel like our church, Sweet Firefly, other institutions who love freely and unconditionally have to find a way to lead the way in treating everyone equally, regardless of what it is they believe in, what it is they're struggling with. And to me, it's more important to demonstrate that love than talk about it. Yes, we're talking about it today, but I never proselytize. I never evangelize to anybody that walks in that store, nor do we allow our team to do that either. What they do is they just love, period. And hopefully through that, people get to know God a little bit better.
Preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words, right?
I love that.
As was ascribed, I think, to St. Francis of Assisi is, I think, essentially what you're saying. That's great.
That's right. I don't want to miss this before we move on, Patti. Can you tell us why you chose to name the store Sweet Firefly?
You might make me cry with this one, but that's okay. I have a dear friend, Lynn McCracken, whose daughter was Kate's best friend, and you'd have to meet Lynn to understand how special she has been in my grief and recovery. And the night that Kate died, Lynn woke up in the middle of the night and wrote a poem called Caterbug the Firefly. And it was all about how she spread her light, even though her life was very brief. And that was printed on the back of the program in her celebration of life here at the church. Well, when Angie asked me to open Sweet Firefly with her, she had this vision of naming it Sweet. And we loved that. It was, let's go to Sweet and have an ice cream cone. Let's do this. Let's do that. And our attorney said, no, you can't trademark that. You can't do anything. You've got to come up with something else. So we tried everything. Sweet Scoop, Sweet Shop, Sweet this, Sweet that. And then one day, we were charged by the lady who did our branding with trying to envision what we wanted the store to feel like. And we said we wanted it to be like a backyard party where everybody's in their favorite comfortable T-shirt and jeans and flip-flops, and we're churning ice cream. There's great music on, and there are fireflies flying around. And it's like, it was this, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was almost like this heavenly moment where it made such good sense. How about Sweet Firefly? And we looked at each other and we said, it's perfect. And I went home and told my husband, and he said, you're crazy. That makes no sense. No one will understand that. No guy will want to go to a shop called Sweet Firefly. It's like the Impeccable Pig. You don't know what the Impeccable Pig sells. I still don't know.
It's clothing.
Oh, it's clothing.
And
okay,
it's really cute clothing.
Right. Anyway, so I went back and I told Trey, I said, look, I know that men may not understand this name, but they're not our target audience. Our target audience is little kids and moms, and we'll make the best ice cream, and that will get the guys, once they try it, they'll come back. They won't care what the name is. But now,
I actually love the name, but I know the story. Yeah.
Right. But this is the neat part. People ask us all the time, are you going to franchise? Are you going to open a second shop? And until we meet someone that we feel like gets it, we'll never share the brand with anybody else, because unless they understand and have the same mission, again, it's not about ice cream. Somebody else could go out and make our ice cream, but it won't feel the same. But I love the idea of the firefly because Kate is my firefly, but Angie's fireflies are her boys, Cam and Cole. Will is my firefly. There are other people whose lives have something that motivates them, something that gives them joy, and that can become their firefly, their reason for spreading joy and light and wanting to serve their communities. So a lot of people assume it's just about Kate. That might have been the original impetus, but that's really not it. That's too limiting. She was the original, and there's no replacing her, but there are so many opportunities to be a firefly for somebody else, to spread light. I mean, that's really what Jesus wanted us to do. That's what he called us to do. And I'm not super comfortable talking about my faith, but I do feel like in the darkest moments, I see God in other people and in the way that they have loved us. And I just want to pass that on.
I could listen to you talk about this all day, but I know our time is limited. So I'm going to ask you one more question if I can. Thank
Sure.
you for sharing all of that, Patti. We ask everyone who comes on the podcast one question, and that question is this. At this point in your life, what's one thing that you wish somebody would have told you?
I wish someone had told me, and actually people did tell me, but I wish I'd listened, to worry less and love harder, because you ultimately cannot change the outcome of things. Not that God has this grand plan, and no matter what you do, it is going to fit his plan. But at the end of the day, I wish someone had said to me, just be still and listen more, pray more, and not pray for certain outcomes, but just pray as a vehicle for being still and listening to what God's dream is for my life. And I say that because there were a lot of days it was a hard road to keep Kate alive because she had been a little preemie. And, you know, in spite of all that work and in spite of all of that effort, at the end of the day, she just wasn't strong enough to live in this world. And I think if I had been more mindful of that, the possibility of her death, I would have lived more in the moment in a more mindful, joyful way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I guess. There's so many things I wish I'd known, like how great avocados are, you know, at such a young age. But I mean, at the end of the day, how important it is to choose love at every opportunity that you have.
That's all right.
Well, you guys are certainly doing that with
Thank
your shop
you.
and with your team. And we sing the praises of Sweet Firefly gourmet ice cream everywhere we go. So we will continue to do that. Patti, thank you so much for sharing the story of the shop and just a little bit about the ways that you create that sort of community atmosphere for the folks that come through your door. We were so glad to have you today.
Thank you for having me.
We all have those fireflies in our lives, and we all have the opportunity to be a firefly to someone else, to shine the light of Christ, to bring joy in whatever work that we do, in whatever relationships, friendships, or communities that we have. We have the opportunity to spread joy through our relationships and through the ways that we make other people feel welcome, regardless as to what stories they bring, what grievings they have, where they come from, what they look like, or what they believe. We have the ability to shine Christ's light to the world.
We want to leave you today with a scripture about being the salt of the earth and the light of the world. The scripture comes from Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out or trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives its light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of More Than Sunday. If you like the podcast, please feel free to share it, go online and leave a comment, or give us a rating so that others might hear about us. This is the final episode of Season 1, so make sure you also subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or YouTube so that when we start back up in January, you won't miss our next episode. If you want to find out more about the Access community here at First United Methodist Church Richardson, you can find us online at accessfumcr.com, as well as on Facebook and Instagram. Special thanks to Patti Otte for joining us this week, and make sure to stay tuned for some bonus content in December and pick back up with us in January. Have a great week and happy Thanksgiving.